Today I'm going to share with you my everyday makeup routine. I've gotten asked to do this a few times, and honestly it is so incredibly simple and straightforward that I've shied away from it. But I thought, you know what, I actually have some tips and tricks that I have learned along the way that I really employ now as I'm into my 50s that I really do think help make me look like the best version of myself. Now, to start out with, and so I have notes I want to share with you. I literally have probably 10 things that I realized that I do that are different than probably even 10 years ago. So I want to get into it. Now, the very first thing is, of course, that I have a pretty good skincare routine. And I think the main thing for me is hydration and pigment control. So as long as my pigment is under control and I don't look super duper brown and blotchy, then I can wear less makeup, and wearing less makeup usually looks better as I get older. That's what I am finding. Now, it's also important for me to be hydrated because I have dry skin, and whenever my skin is dry, and especially if it's dry and it has excess pigmentation, then I feel like I have to do more, or I just don't feel like I look my best. So that's the beginning of it, is try your best to have a consistent skincare routine so that the canvas is kind of set for, you know, easy makeup, simple little makeup. Now, this doesn't mean perfect skin. In fact, in this, you will see I actually don't try to completely cover everything up. I am not trying to completely conceal my dark circles. I am not trying to cover my entire face in foundation or anything like that. I've really learned over the years that less is more. And anytime I wear more makeup than I normally do, I actually feel like I look worse. So that is probably the number one tip, is always do less than you think, and it will probably look better than you think. Okay, so the first thing that I do is I wear a tinted sunscreen. Now, what I'm wearing in this video today is the Dermatology Universal Tinted Moisturizer. Now, it is very sheer, but it ever so slightly does even out my skin, and I let that just sit on my skin. So when you're first seeing me, you're seeing a sheer wash of that Universal Tinted Moisturizer. I have loved that forever. I feel like I can wear enough to actually get the SPF factor that it is on the bottle, so I can wear a lot of it. And I feel like it moisturizes my skin, but I also feel like it's kind of like a primer. Even though you're gonna see I don't wear a lot of foundation or anything like that, it does act kind of like it refines the pores and stuff like that. I just really love it, and I've loved it for years and years. Now, the next thing that I do, and I definitely don't do this every day, in fact, I probably only do this every few weeks, is I tinted my eyebrows. And I tinted my eyebrows as I'm doing my makeup because multitasking is everything. I wanted to show you that you can get this done right along with one of the days that you do your makeup, and it will make such a huge difference. If you tint your eyebrows, it's amazing how much you have more of a structure to your face. It really brings out the eyes. It really brings back a little bit of youthfulness to the face. Also, when you tint your eyebrows, it's different than just coloring them in with a pencil or something like that, because the tint can catch all the little tiny hairs, the gray hairs, all that stuff, and it really will make you look like you have more eyebrows than you think, because that tint will catch all those little hairs. So I just use Just for Men. It is super inexpensive. It literally sits on the skin or on the eyebrows for like 5 minutes. So I do my routine, my makeup, while they're being tinted. And probably about 3/4 of the way through, I remove them with some tissue and my brows are done. So that is my first or second or third recommendation, is to tint your eyebrows. Grab yourself some Just for Men, get a lighter color than you think you need, because it's always a little bit darker than you think, and always get the mustache and beard formula. That one is kind of formulated for the hair that's on our face, not on our head. And the Just for Men is because it always has the right undertone. Most men aren't going for reds and warmth, and they do make that specifically, but most of them have a neutral undertone, which looks really good on our eyebrows, unless we're a redhead or unless we just like to have warmth in our eyebrows. I personally don't. I like them to be very neutral. Okay, so you put that on. I use the tiniest little brush. I am using the tiniest brush that BK Beauty makes. I have like 3 of these. I love it for using it for eyeliner. You guys have seen that before. I love it for applying the eyebrow tint, because you can be very precise, then it's not all over your skin and all of that. Keeps it really easy. I take my time putting it on. It probably takes me 3 minutes to apply the dye, but it's really worth it to take your your time because when you remove it, you're just good to go. So the next thing that I do is I tightline my eyes. Now, some people just cannot stand to do this. So if that's you, that's okay. But the reason why I tightline a lot of the time is because as I've gotten older, I notice that I have less and less lid space. Now, 5 years ago, I had an upper blepharoplasty, but I still, as I'm aging, I still notice that I don't have as much lid space as I used to. So when you tightline and you put the eyeliner on the under part of the eye rim, then you're not taking up any of that precious lid space, but you are giving some definition to your eyes. You're also adding a little bit of color to the root of your lashes. So when you end up putting on your mascara, if you choose to wear mascara, your lashes look thicker, which looks more youthful and just makes you look like you have more lashes. And it makes them look longer because you've extended where the lashes end to that part of your eyelid. So if you are on board with tightlining, it's really one of those things that is fantastic, especially as we get older, especially if you have hooded lids. Okay, so a color corrector is pretty much my best friend as far as doing my under eye circles. I have a little bit of blue, circles from the skin getting thinner, losing the fat underneath my eyes, and obviously you can see the vascularity there. So I like to take a color corrector. So you want to take anything that's like peachy color and real close to the depth of your skin or slightly darker. And I just will pat it into the areas, and I do not use a lot. That's part of the key, and the magic is to not use too much. And I just go over the areas, especially the very inner corner of the eye here. That is a telltale. If we don't conceal this part right here, we can look really tired. And because darkness recesses and brightness pushes things forward, if you don't color here, it will look recessed and will look a little bit more hollow than we want to. So I always make sure to get right here and into the tear trough. I go out into this area where I'm noticing a lot more hollowing. And so the differentiation between my hollowness here and my cheeks here is pretty great. So I try to hit out there a little bit too so that I can bring that forward just a tiny bit. But what I don't do is I do not go all the way up to my lash line. I used to do that, and I think it does two things. I think it makes us look older and it makes us look too made up. Also, the more concealer or corrector that we use, obviously the more there is to get into fine lines, crinkles, wrinkles, and all that stuff in that area. So I actually leave the area just underneath the lash line blank. I don't put anything there. And I actually find that I think that that looks more youthful because it doesn't look like we're wearing a lot of makeup. At this point, I usually move on to my lips, and what I've been liking to do for quite a while now is I will use a darker, kind of like a rum raisin or a berry colored lip liner or a rosewood. I have so many of those. I'm still using the same Soch lip liner that I have loved for so long. I will definitely put the colors and everything like that down in the description box because I think this is one of those colors that I think is your lips but better, like almost everybody's lips. I think that it would look good. And even if it's lighter than some people's lips, I think it still would look really, really good on most people. It's like a mid-tone rose brown. I put that on first, and I'm careful not to go too harsh with the line. I almost use like the side of the lip liner instead of the point of the lip liner, where I used to use the point of the lip liner and definitely tried to get a line. Now I'm just wanting to get a little bit of definition, and I might put it just slightly outside of the actual lip where there's still some volume, but it's no longer the color of the lip. So it doesn't look too overlined, but it does give a little bit of volume to the lip. And then what I do is I stop just short of the corners on both the bottom and the top. Now it's pretty close, but I do not go all the way out to the corners. So after I do that, I grab a color that is considerably lighter and I go over exactly where I put the dark. What that does is it kind of blurs everything. It kind of blends it in and makes it just look like there's no real lip liner there at all, but my lips look a little bit more defined. So that's another tip, is not to take your lip liner all the way out to the corner, and try using a darker color to really see the definition, because that's another thing. It's hard to see sometimes. I mean, if you can't see as well as you used to, the darker is easier to see, but then you can go over it with a lighter to soften it up to make it look a little bit more natural, but retain having that definition. And I think that looks really, really nice. Now what I do next is I actually take a concealer, or you could use a foundation if you wanted to, and a nice fluffy brush, a small-ish fluffy brush, and I actually conceal the corners of my mouth. Now I've been doing that for so long, and every time I would do it before I would film, because I don't do it every single day, I always would get comments about my lips, like, what have you done? Did you do something to your lips? And I'm like, no, essentially what I've done is I'm contouring my lips with lip liner and also with some kind of flesh colored concealer of some sort on the corners, because as I have gotten older, my mouth has widened. Now I did get a lip lift, but I still like to kind of just chop off the corners that I feel are extending out to the side of my face. That is really simple to do. So I just open my mouth, and all I'm doing is shaping my mouth the way that I would like it to, because I feel like kind of a bowed mouth without it being too wide is just more youthful. That's just a preference. Again, I don't do it every single day, but when I think of it, I really do like the way that that looks. Now then I go back in and I usually kind of buff it all together so there's no harsh lines of anything. And I want to remind you, none of this is a lot of makeup. I am talking the most tiny amount, like an airbrush amount of everything. It is very small amount. We're just trying to accentuate things, not trying to really throw a ton of makeup on top of anything. By this point now, I usually have to remove my brows, and all I do is I take some bath tissue and I wipe it off. Now I could wipe it off with like the color killer wipes that I've used forever, but because I have my sunscreen and stuff like that, I wipe it off, which does take off a little bit of my sunscreen. Remember, I'm only doing this like once every 3 weeks to the brows, but I get that off with a dry tissue and my brows are done. They are essentially done. They will look better tomorrow when I wash my face and start over, but for now they look pretty good, and I got that done as I was doing my makeup. This is when I go in with the tiniest amount of a foundation. Now I have used the Ilia, the Super Serum Skin Tint. I have used this forever, and I love this right now because it's very sheer. It has a little bit of SPF in it, and I feel like it just really gives this kind of nice looking skin without looking made up. So I just dot it in the center of my face, use my fingers to blend it out just a little bit, and then I go over it with a damp but really well wrung out Sonia Kashuk sponge. Sometimes I'll even put a towel on this and get a lot of the water out. And I just airbrush that out in the center of my face. It helps to kind of make the eyebrow area look a little bit better if it was a little bit pink from removing the dye. It helps to conceal any kind of broken capillaries around the nose, on my chin, and it gives just kind of a nice uniformity to the face. It's also hydrating, and like I said, it has that SPF, so it's protective. So I love it. So that's my foundation. So you can see not a lot of coverage on my face, and I feel like that looks the most beautiful as we age versus heavy makeup. Now, I'm not saying that there's not a time and a place. If you want to wear heavy makeup, if you're going to do a photo shoot or something like that, you may want to have some heavy makeup, or if you want to have heavy makeup every day, you can have heavy makeup. I mean, that is definitely, I am not the makeup police. I'm just telling you how I do it and how I do think that it really looks nice as we get older. The next tip is to try cream blush. Now, I have not used a powder blush in so long. I have them, and every once in a while I'll get one out and just play around with it. But cream blushes just look so beautiful on mature skin. They really kind of give this hydrated, youthful look. They usually blend out seamlessly, give it that kind of like lit from within, pinched cheek look. And one that I have used forever is the Honest Beauty. This is the Peony Pink. I mean, I've been recommending this for probably 5 years now. It was a gift originally from a friend, and after she gave it to me, I mean, I have never put it down. I've repurchased it probably 3 times over the years. It's such a beautiful color. It's another thing that I think would look good on so many people. The way that I do it is I actually put my BK Beauty, this is the 106, put it into the blush, and I put it on the back of my hand and really try to work it into my hand. That way there's just a little bit on my brush, enough to give me that flush without overdoing it, because I don't want to look clown-like. I just want to look like I got a little bit of color in my cheeks. So that's the next thing that I do. And that's another huge tip. Cream blush work it into your hand before you put it onto your cheeks. For me, on my lips at this point, I will just use any kind of a sheer color. I like to use glosses, but I don't like them to be crazy glossy. I just want something that makes my lips look hydrated. Every once in a while you will see me with a matte lip, but that is not very common because I feel like hydrated lips just look a little bit more youthful, and I don't mean they have to be full on shiny. I just mean hydrated. Sometimes I will film and I forget to put anything on my lips, and I'm always like, oh, because my lips will just look they just look lifeless. And so in this video, I just put on a simple pot gloss that I have from Trini. It's a beautiful color. You can obviously pick any color you want, but I think that colors that aren't too dark or too matte usually look best. I finish with a dusting of a pore refining powder. I think that that's really important, just the most sheer amount, and then tubing mascara. Tubing mascara is such a huge plus because you will not get raccoon eyes. It comes off with just splashes of water, so it's nice to your lashes. And I always do my lower lashes. Some people don't, but you do not have to skip your lower lashes. I think it can look really beautiful. Finally, wear your hair however you want. That is my last tip. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what are your favorite makeup items and what are some of your tips as you've gotten older. I hope you have the most wonderful day, and I'll talk to you in my next skincare video. Take care.